Hello and welcome to Bothering Strangers 30 Minutes Max Edition with Max Hearing. I'm Max Hearing and I have a very interesting guest today. She was on the news not that long ago for having an OnlyFans account, and her kids were in school and some parents found out about it, and they managed to expel her children. My guest today is Crystal Jackson, or Mrs. Poindexter, however you're feeling about OnlyFans. Crystal, how's it going?
It's going good. It's going okay. Yeah.
How was that intro? I don't know.
It was fine. Perfect.
That's all. Fine is good enough for me.
Yep.
So basically, from what I read on the web, it seemed like some moms at your kid's Catholic school in Sacramento found out about your OnlyFans through dads.
Yes.
At the school. And they wrote a letter to the principal, and the principal signed off on the letter, and your three kids got expelled.
Yeah. So a little more, there's a little more to that story. So, going back, so we started OnlyFans back in September 2019, right? Just like marriage fun. So it was going for a long time, about 10 months before anybody, there'd be people that would find it, but men wouldn't break man code, right? They were just like, hey, I see you. Wink, wink. I'm not going to say anything, which I thought that's what most men would do. 10 months into doing this. So last July, some dad ran across it. Long story short, told his wife, who told, hot gossip kind of goes around. They're taking pictures and, spreading them around. And then I get an email from the principal saying, hey, there's some scandalous pictures that these moms found. Heads up, or, that's being talked about. To make a long story short, the principal actually met with the diocese and their attorneys back in August of last year, back in August of 2020. And they deemed at the time that this was not an issue. The kids were fine. They weren't going to make it an issue. The Catholic Church has been through a lot of scandals. They didn't want to pass judgment because they've let priests around for a long time without like going into details. Right. So they're like, no judgment here. We're going to be fine. But this mom, there's just one particular mom, and she's not used to being told no. And she's this wealthy, white privileged person that you just do not tell her no. And so when the school said, we're not doing anything, it just it got under her. And honestly, she's not offended by it because she gets on my site and she creates fake accounts on Instagram. She pays for my OnlyFans content and takes the pictures and prints them out, or she'll pass them around and spin all over the neighborhood, even places like 20, 30 miles away from where we live. I get people texting those messages, content back.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was, so that kind of started it like in the summer. It kind of got all over like ESAC. I was getting phone calls. I was getting text messages. One of my friends was like, I think you need to move. These moms are going to take you down. You're going to have to just move out of the school, move out of the area. You're not going to want to be in this environment. And I'm like, if you don't like it, at the time, Crystal Jackson, Miss Poindexter, there was no connection. So I'm like, you have to actually go search for Miss Poindexter to find her. And they did. That's what they were doing. So, and so I'm like, if you don't like it, just don't look, right? Just move along, just keep going. But they couldn't do that. I'm like, there's this one mom, she just was not, and she's not offended by it because I know things about her personal life, and she's not offended by this type of behavior. She just doesn't, I told you, she doesn't like being told no. And she's tried to get the principal kicked out of school a couple of years ago. She's done this to other women, other people in our neighborhood, just that she focuses on a target, and then that's like her target. And she wants to see, like, can I destroy this person? So long story short, she kept at it, printing pictures, sending them to the school, like in these envelopes, all through the fall. In January, we heard that a big packet came to the school, to the bishop, and to the priest. At that time, we heard, because we had some friends that were teachers there, that, it might be an issue. They might have to discuss like taking the kids out of school. we wrote the diocese, the superintendent, and said, hey, listen, you've never asked us what's going on. we will sit down, we'll open up your page, because my page, I mean, there's no sex videos on my page. There's no porn. It even says in the very beginning, like, this is not porn, but it will tell you what it is. So yeah, there is like some nude like pictures, a lot more topless pictures, but I think that they were thinking there was a lot going on behind the scenes that they just didn't know, right? They didn't know what OnlyFans was. They had a lot of assumptions. So we offered, we'll open a page up. We'll sit down with you. We'll show you. You've never asked us. We'll kill all those rumors, all that gossip. And we even asked in that email we even told them we would leave the school. We would peacefully leave the school if that is what the decision is. And we, offered twice in the email to leave the school. We never heard anything back. And that was at the end of January. And then 2 weeks later, I got an email from the principal, because we've been at that school for 7 years. We do like over 100 hours of volunteer work. I run the crap beat. I've done room moms. You have to be background checked and, checked, like go through all these classes. But 2 weeks after we sent that email, I get an email from the principal saying that she's removing me as a second grade room mom, because I'm asking for children's pictures for the yearbook, and the parents are concerned that I'm going to have these pictures. So that is when, and this mean mom who's been like sending these pictures, sending all my content around, her child's in my class. So I know it's her. I know it's like she called up and said, hey, you can't have her like collecting pictures of children, it's not right, or whatever she said. But that was my breaking point where I'm like, I am done with this. I'm like, you guys for the last 7-8 months have been like passing my content around, trying to get my kids kicked out of the school, sending packages of pictures to the school, creating all these fake accounts, getting on my OnlyFans. And then to have me like basically kicked out of being a room mom, saying I'm unsafe to be around children. That's when I was like, F it. I'm like, we're calling the press and we're going, we tried to put the school in a really good light of saying, hey, listen, don't name the school, don't name the diocese, tell them that they're actually working with us, which they were. But I just wanted to make a story of like, hey, these moms have been bullying me, harassing me for the last like 7 months. And this behavior is really disturbing, like for being an adult, that you do this to a woman. So that was what the first story was. Well, the school took it as like, oh, you're going after fame, media, whatever. I mean, but I think she was under a lot of pressure to get these kids kicked out. So she just took that as like, oh, you went to the press, now the kids are kicked out. So I just find it really, I don't even know if I can't even think right now, because I've been drinking not enough coffee this morning, but it's really disturbing because the school already said, and before the start of the school year, that it was fine. And then, they slowly changed their tune to being like, the kids are expelled. And I know it was driven by this one wealthy mom who has way too much time on her hands. And her family's highly influenced, or has influence in the neighborhood. And, the priest has dinner at her parents' house. I mean, that's the type of like, there's a lot of politics, I think, that are going on behind the scenes that, this wasn't a school thing. I think it was more of, the principal was talked into it by this group of parents or this couple. But the dad, the mean mom, her husband was telling everyone, all the dads, because I have dads that have gone onto my OnlyFans site and have told me, hey, listen, I heard it from this person, from that dad, from the mean. And so it's really interesting.
Let's rewind a little bit here then. Mm-hmm. All three of your kids went to that school?
Yeah. Yeah. They've been going, we've been a part of that school for 7 years.
Wow. So, okay. And you started in 2019. So that was like when OnlyFans was like, not many people even knew about it then,
Yeah. I mean, we did it. So when we started OnlyFans, I mean, it was a suggestion to us from some Redditors. My husband, Marriage Fun, posted a few pictures up. I took over posting the pictures, and they suggested like, hey, why don't you start an OnlyFans page? I had, even though we're in technology, we didn't know, we had never heard of that platform. So we're just like, what's OnlyFans? I'm like, I'm 40 something years old. Who's going to come watch me on OnlyFans? That's crazy.
People, there's always
crazy.
Everyone always wants something. there's there's a group for everyone.
And there is, right? But I had, just thinking like at the time, like total mom wear. I've always been like more of like kind of a tomboy outside. This is kind of more of my gear. So it was like, I didn't have any lingerie. I didn't have any matching like underwear. I mean, so I was like, who's gonna come watch this mom? And they did. It was super successful, like out the gate. Like the first month was like 14,000. So, I think a lot of it has to do like just my brand of being like your average mom next door. You get a little glimpse behind, the scenes of like, what does she do? So, but yeah, so we didn't really know, like we had never heard of it. So we started it and just was like, he would take my pictures. We would fight over that. I would do the content.
Sure. I can see that. So what happened, like when you started OnlyFans, like you said, like you didn't think there would be a market for it, which I had someone I know personally who does OnlyFans on my podcast like maybe 2 months ago, and she said the same thing, and I said there's always a market. What did that do for like your self-esteem when you look back on that?
Oh, so if you look at like some of the very first photos, because when we go back to like why, like we posted the pictures on Reddit, right? It was, we've been together 20 years, married like almost 14 years, not without some difficulties in our marriage. We worked really hard to make sure our marriage was strong, but I went through like early menopause. I just didn't feel sexy. I didn't feel like wanting to have that intimacy. So we tried a bunch of different things. It's just one of the things that we did. And it stuck, right? I mean, it's like this whole journey accomplished its one part or its main goal. And that was like to make our like intimacy, like, better in our marriage. But like, if you look at the first pictures, it's like, I've never been a shy person, but I've never been like, oh, hey, look at me type of person either. It was like, I just didn't really, I wasn't that person that was like wanting to pose taking pictures at all. So they're very like, I'm very shy in a lot of the first videos. I'm just very like, is this, like even some of the little videos where it's like, I'm undressing like a little bit into like my underwear. It's like very just like, okay, shy. It did build up my confidence. That's for sure. It's allowed me to like express myself, like, in my intimacy and like more sexually than I had ever been. I've always thought that we've always had a good sexual relationship, had some difficulties there, but this has actually taken it to a different level, right? Because now I can be like, as a woman, you're always taught like, okay, at least for me, it was like, sex is supposed to be good and fun, but it's like, you shouldn't be sharing like your fantasies. You shouldn't be sharing those deep, dark secrets because good girls don't do that. Right. So this has like allowed me to like break out of that and be like, okay, yeah, I do have these like fantasies and I do want these certain things for myself. I mean, maybe I'm just an anomaly, but for me, it's helped, express myself and taken that to a different level.
Your kids went to Catholic school, so are you guys both Catholic?
Yeah, he was raised Catholic. I converted over to being Catholic before we got married.
Do you think that had being Catholic? I mean, I don't know. It's like converting. I'm Jewish, so yeah. I don't know any of that. But do you think that played some role in kind of like, everything you just talked about, wanting to keep quiet and not talk about your fantasies and all that stuff?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I think if anything, it's like that, and this is where the church came back, or in her letter, her expulsion letter, she was like, you're not following, like, you're kind of like out, like not really within the guidelines of like your Catholic, marriage, sacrament type of thing. And I think, well, no, I'm like, we're doing this together. I'm like, that's pretty like marriage. We're pretty tight marriage wise. Now I'm like, us, yeah, I have pictures out there. But I'm like, how is that? Like, we're doing this. He's fully aware of it. He takes some of the pictures. I'm like, we're together pretty tightly as a married couple versus a couple that are having an affair or being divorced, at the school. So I'm like, I don't really see, like, her argument is pretty like watered down weak. So I think when it comes to the marriage part, when the Catholic Church it's pretty tight.
So you were getting paid. You were making a good amount of money from the beginning.
Yeah.
But what changed with the money after the scandal?
Oh, so I mean, we were making good money before, right? So I mean, we were running before all the kids like got kicked out of school. We were making like like 150 like a month. So we didn't, I mean, and that was it. Let me back up, because we had to get like lawyers involved back in September. Entertainment lawyers, I don't know if you know a lot of how that works, but in the background,
they're all expensive.
Well, yeah. And they're all talking, right? So they're all talking and they all have these connections with like Hollywood. So we've been approached like numerous times because there's so much drama. Like, we should do a show. Let's go to the press and talk about this. And we've always said, no, this is a liability. And we've like pushed them away. Like, we're not talking about this. I don't want to be out in the public. You'll leave us alone. Let us make our $150,000 a month and we're just fine. Just leave us alone. Right. We're having fun, because we've always been under the impression with OnlyFans is that, having that technology background, this platform can like end tomorrow. Right. So we don't bank on it being like, hey, it's going to be big. It's something that's going to go on forever. We've run technology companies. We've run startups. We're very familiar from like working in Silicon Valley. I ran a business. My husband's ran corporations. So we have a really strong business background, knowing in technology, knowing that this could all end tomorrow.
Yeah.
So we don't bank on this, but we're like, hey, we don't want it to be public. We just want to this is fun. It's our little marriage fund, putting money in savings. We're just going to like go with it until it dies, or until like we decide that it's no longer fun. Yeah. So with these, like the media and these other people who've come to us, we've always just been like, just stay away. Plus we didn't want the kids involved. We didn't want the school involved. We knew if the school, Catholic school, church, it would be like really bad. And so we didn't want any of that in there. But I got to my breaking point after almost 8 months of being of all my pictures being passed around. That was a time where I was like, I'm just going to rip the bandage off. We're going full, let's call these media people that wanted to talk for a while and figure out what we can do. So to us, it's a liability to go public, right? Like this, right? Because people now know who I am. People I've professionally, my whole career for the last 20 something years. Cause I started at Intel and I was 22 as an engineer. So it's all of that, all those people now know. And that is that's a liability for me. Right.
Yeah, for sure. It can be.
So that was but at some point also, we also, because we are engineers and have had businesses, we've also have to look at the risk assessment of things too. So even the very beginning, when we started this, it was weighing out the risk. People are going to find out at some point, how is that risk going to be? But with us, we were able to make it 10 months without it being really blowing up in our faces. Right.
Did you guys do a SWOT analysis?
No, we didn't do a SWOT analysis.
I love a good
It's
SWOT
funny, it
analysis.
should have though, right?
Yeah, I think that might have been one of the few things I learned in college was how to do a SWOT analysis. They really do help. Do your kids understand how, first of all, if you don't mind me asking, how old are your kids?
8, 10, and 12.
Okay, 8, 10, 12.
They're all boys, yeah.
Okay, which does change things as well. Do they understand why they left their school? Because you said today, literally, that it's their first day in public school.
Yeah. So they so in January, when we heard this was kind of bubbling up, and sat them down and we basically said, hey, listen, mom's a big internet model. That's how we said. They don't need to know anything about OnlyFans. She's a big internet model, and some of the moms at school, and I related it back to hey, when we watch the Real Housewives of Orange County, those moms are real bitchy. That's kind of how these moms are. They're not liking me being on the internet. And if you hear something, you need to let us know. So, that's all they know. And they know, when they got kicked out, we had to sit them down again, hey, listen, it's us. It's not you. They're not kicking you out. They're kicking us out. As a family, because they don't like what your mom is doing. So Because, I don't want them to think that it's like they did something wrong. It's because it's on me. Right. And there's a lot of guilt on my part of like, as a mom, I'm always going to have that guilt feeling about like, what happened? What did I do? So anyways, don't want to get too much in the guilt because that could put us off topic, but yeah. So they know it's like, hey, mom's a big internet model. That's why we got kicked out of school. And then who knows, right? It's like, who knows how long this part of like OnlyFans, like we stay in this journey too. Right. So there's always that, like, and that was like, and it's always been a deal with us, like going back to the risk assessment, when people would find out, like, and there's times where we shut the account down and then we'd start it back up because someone found out. And it's like that constant back and forth. But then in July, it's like, it had been running for 10 months. And there's just people do have stolen content out there. It's all, once you put it out there, it's always out there. So at that point, it's like, well, it's already out there. So it's like, to shut it down would then make me look like I'm guilty of doing something that I shouldn't have been doing. So it's like, well, you just kind of lean into it and be like, okay, yep, you caught me. Here I am. Like, what are you going to do now?
I know that we don't have all that much time left. So I did ask about
okay.
Reddit, because
even
on your Instagram, like that's the bio, that's the link you chose to put on there. So how does, your Reddit, I checked it out.
Yeah.
Or the followers specifically, you have a lot of followers on Reddit. How does that work? How is that played into like your OnlyFans fame?
Because that was the first place I was ever posted, right? Was on Reddit, because there's all these different subreddits there. So that was the first place. That's kind of like my home base, I want to say, is the Reddit. And because Reddit, you can be a little more, so, IG has to be like pretty like PG, family friendly oriented. Otherwise they will kill your account. But on Reddit, it's like, I can show my butt, or I can be a little bit more,
risque.
A little bit, what?
Risque.
Yes, exactly. So, and then it's just kind of like, that was like my home base. So I've always kept Reddit. And then that way I can just, I can talk to people easier on Reddit through direct messages, because IG, like, direct messages are horrible. That's why it took so long, for when people are asking for like interviews or a talk, it's like it gets lost and you can't filter right. And at least Reddit, it's easier to manage. So, and like I said, it's just, a lot of my fans in the very beginning came from Reddit, because that's where I started at. So I just kind of kept my base at Reddit. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Have you received a lot of support from the Reddit community, or how's that been?
I think for the most part, I think Reddit and IG, it's been, well, because of most of my Redditor fans, my fans in Reddit, they've been following me since like September 2019, right? So they're pretty solid. It's a pretty solid fan base where it's like, if someone says anything negative, sometimes they'll pile on that person. So there's been a few people that have come in. I will say this, the mean mom, Karen, when this whole thing started back in the summer, I didn't have IG public, right? It was private, and I had blocked everybody at the school from it. I went through the handbook and went through the directory and blocked a bunch of people. So at that time, you could only hit Reddit or Twitter. So they were taking pictures off that. And she was telling people to go to my Reddit account, because I saw she was grab pictures and she was telling people. So I made a little video. Did you ever see that video?
I didn't do good enough research. I didn't see the video.
It might not be there anymore. But basically, because I was so upset, I made a little video and I said, it was like my 1 year anniversary of being on OnlyFans and being on Reddit. So I was like, hey, thanks for all the Reddit support. Because, this is where it all started, Reddit. Thanks for my support on Reddit. You guys wanted me to open the OnlyFans page. You guys have helped me become successful in that. And with that, I'm like, and hey, to the moms at school that are looking at me on Reddit, hey, thank you for telling your husbands, because they're my new fans.
Yeah.
Those moms lost their shit and they were so pissed.
I can see that. You must have a lot of fans from the Catholic school now. Haters as well, but fans too.
But, and they're mad about that. And I'm like, but I didn't tell your husbands, like you guys went around, showed all these pictures around, and then it's hot gossip. So you told your husbands and now you're mad at me. I'm like, that's not my fault. I'm like, that's on you, man, because like I did not make this public at all. I mean, it's public as it's out there, but I didn't tell people at school, hey, I have this OnlyFans page, or you can go find me here. If people stumbled across it, they did. And then they followed man code, which was like, I'm not going to say anything to anybody about it. It's just that this one guy decided to break man code. But anyways, there's some dads on there. There's some dads, but they're pretty like chill, right? They just hang back and they just watch. They don't say anything.
They pay their monthly fee and
and they're like, hey, Crystal,
they call it a day.
Yeah, sorry, you're no longer at the school. And then my page also, it has a higher fee to come in, but it's all like inclusive. So it's like you basically come in. There's no, I don't upsell people. I don't want tips. I don't require tips. I mean, I actually tell people don't tip. I will talk to you for free. So I don't play games. I don't sell anything. So it's all included. But then it's also that OnlyFans promise as a brand is also to like create those, that experience and those relationships with a person, right? As a content creator.
How much is your OnlyFans?
$14.99. So $15.
Yeah, a little higher than a lot of people. Do you know how much they take OnlyFans?
20%.
They take 20%. That's like still a good cut though. 80%. That's like that's a lot. That's a lot to keep. And do you know like how much like that gets taxed?
Well, whatever tax bracket you come into. Yeah, it all depends on what tax bracket you're into, right? So if you make more money, you're gonna be paying higher taxes. If you're making less and you're under whatever the threshold, whatever that your tax bracket is, it all depends, right? You could be wherever, because it is income. They do give you like a 1099 at the end of the year. So it is a legit, corporation where they will give you, and they make sure that they're reporting that to the IRS.
Well, I know that we're about done on time here, as it's approaching 11 o'clock.
Okay. So are we good? Are we good, Max? Or do you have any other questions? Or
I was just gonna let you plug yourself.
What?
I was just gonna let you plug yourself and wherever people can find you.
Oh, I mean, they could find me at Instagram, Reddit, Twitter. Just Google Miss Poindexter.
Google, okay. I guess I didn't think about Google, but I guess Google too. So
well, I mean, also right now because of all the articles, I mean, people can find it, right? I mean, I'm not like, yeah.
Well, you're Mrs. Poindexter.
Well, Mrs. Poindexter. Well, Mrs. Poindexter.
Everyone can find Crystal's stuff on, as Mrs. Poindexter on everything. So,
yeah,
everywhere you look. So thank you so much for doing this. I appreciate
thanks,
it. This is like current events right here.
It is.
And I was like, I haven't done one of those.
Oh, okay. Well, good. All right. Well, if you have any follow-up questions, text me or email me, or, we can jump on a call really fast too. So
I will do that. And thank you for letting me bother you. And everyone follow Crystal where I said, and everyone stay safe.
All right.